Hello, fans, collectors, investors. Welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I'm Iconic Al. It is my distinct honor and privilege today to introduce number 19 on my countdown. This is my list of the 100 greatest and most iconic ball players in baseball history. We're talking about a mythical figure, a man who is widely considered the greatest pitcher in Negro League history, and on a short list of men that could be considered the greatest pitcher of all time. Like his contemporary Josh Gibson, his greatness will never truly translate through stats alone. However, through the legends, the stories, and the numbers we do have, a picture emerges of true greatness. His personality was one of a kind. He was described as funny, charismatic, and he was a true entertainer whenever he took the mound. I'm of course talking about the incomparable Satchel Paige.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Well, Satch, I think myself and a lot of other people Sunday got a big throw when they watched you out here pitch those last 2 innings against Buffalo in that first game.
Yes, Jack, that was my first try, since we started the playing out there. But I wasn't quite at myself at that time. All I had was control. I didn't have nothing on my fastballs.
You look pretty good to me, and I think that a lot of people figure, well, maybe this is Satch's last year. Maybe he's not going to be as good as he was last year. But I think you showed him out there Sunday that you're just as good, if not better, than you were last year.
Well, I tries to keep up like that, but Jack, I don't think this is my last year. I think I can play baseball about 15 or 20 more years.
Well,
I'm gonna keep up with Landon.
the way you throw that ball, I think you'll do all right. Let me ask you this, Satch. A great many years ago, not too many years ago, you pitched for Cleveland up there and did a tremendous job for them. Do you feel that right now that you can throw that ball just as good as you could then?
Yes, I do, Jack. I really believe I can throw it just like I did then. I throw it a little better because I don't got a little older and I know more men. See, everybody come up on me. It's the first decade, and this is about my 7th.
What about the big leagues? Do you think you'd ever like to go back there and pitch, Satch?
Yes, I would like to go back because everybody, Jack, think I'm so old and I cannot do this and I cannot do the other. And I want to show them that I can still play baseball regardless if they don't know my age. If they think I'm 107, it's still all right.
Well, I don't know how old you are, Satch, and maybe the other ball players don't either, but that fastball of yours looks just as good as it did many years ago.
Jack, I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think it was a very few people in the United States know my age or where I come from even now, let alone know my age, because I've been playing ever since I was a kid. I never had a job. But still, they say I'm 100 years old, and everybody I meet, they say they played ball with me. Some of them's 100, some of them's 85 and 90.
Satch, what do you have to get, be a real good pitcher, we'll say, today?
First thing is control, to throw the ball where you want to throw it. You don't need but one ball. I hear kids with a slider, knuckleball, and a screwball, and a nightmare, and a 4-day creep, and all those different balls. But if you just got one that you can get over any time you want and throw where you want it, Jack, you don't need but
That's
the
right.
one.
It's just, in other words, all you need is a good fastball.
That's right.
And I rolled a night, tumbled and I cried the whole night long. And I rolled a night, tumbled and I cried the whole night long. And I rose this morning, mama, and I didn't know right from wrong.
Leroy Satchel Paige was the greatest and most iconic player in the history of the Negro Leagues, and he very well may have been the greatest pitcher of all time. But don't take my word for it. Dizzy Dean, Bob Feller, Joe DiMaggio, and Ted Williams all called him the greatest pitcher they ever saw. Satchel started his professional career back in 1927 with the Birmingham Black Barons. He would then go on to play for the Pittsburgh Crawfords and the Kansas City Monarchs, where he won a Negro League World Championship back in 1942. In 1948, Satchel became the oldest rookie in Major League history, making his debut with the Cleveland Indians at the age of 41. That Indians team would go on to win a World Series, and Satchel would have his second championship. He then played for the St. Louis Browns from 1951 to 1953, and then made history again in 1965 when he pitched 3 scoreless innings with the Kansas City Athletics at the age of 59 years old, making him the oldest pitcher in Major League history. I could do an entire video on legends and stories surrounding the great Satchel Paige, but that's already been done, and I highly encourage you to seek those out because they're phenomenal. On this video, I wanted to focus on something that I find is a little more relevant to my countdown and a little more elusive. How do we rank Satchel and quantify his numbers with an incomplete statistical record? As many fans know, a few years back, Major League Baseball took the extraordinary step of importing and integrating Negro League stats into the Major League statistical record, which I think was a phenomenal move. It gives us a better sense of the kind of player that many of these guys were. Now, we don't have a complete record, but we can start to extrapolate, based on the numbers we do have, what a full career might have looked like for guys like Josh Gibson and Satchel Paige. Based on the official numbers that have been accepted by Major League Baseball for Satchel Paige, we have a snapshot of a phenomenal pitcher. A 2.73 ERA, a 1.101 WHIP, a 150 ERA+, a win-loss record of 124 wins, 82 losses, a guy who compiled 47 WAR, struck out 1,500 batters in just over 1,750 innings pitched. Now, to give that some perspective, Satchel himself claims to have pitched in over 2,000 games. Now, many of those were barnstorming games, games that he would have played in Cuba, Venezuela, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. These are unofficial games that you really can't count in the Major League record, and I understand that. However, if we had a fantasy scenario where we had stats for Satchel Paige and assumed that he pitched as many innings as Nolan Ryan, which we all know he did. Nolan Ryan pitched 5,386 innings. 5,386 innings is about 3 times as many innings as we have documented for Satchel Paige. Therefore, if we triple Satchel Paige's career totals, maybe you come close to an estimation or an extrapolation of the kind of pitcher that Satchel Paige truly was. So let's do that. That would yield 372 career wins, 4,503 strikeouts, and maybe most impressively, a career WAR of 141. That total would put him third all time behind Walter Johnson and Cy Young. That's the kind of pitcher that Satchel Paige likely was statistically, if we had the numbers documented, and if he had been afforded the chance to showcase and log his entire brilliant career at the Major League level. Okay, here's what I have for Mr. Satchel Paige. Both of these items have been with me for over 2 decades. Let's start with the playing days card on the left. This is a really nice example of his 53 tops. For my money, his most aesthetically pleasing playing days card. Also his most plentiful in terms of population, and most affordable. He really only has 3 playing days cards, this being the last one. From the tail end of his career, those years with the St. Louis Browns, just a really artful pose, really nice rendering of Satch. It's got a 2 just because there is some creasing on it, but in terms of eye appeal, you really can't beat that one. One that I had graded a couple years ago. Very, very happy to get the 2. I did some pop report diving, and what you'll find is there's really only 3 primary cards to choose from for Satchel Paige in terms of his playing days. His 49 Leaf, his 49 Bowman, and his 53 tops, which really restricts the available supply of playing days Satchel Paige cards. If we break down the populations for the 53 tops, there are 4,858 graded by PSA, 2,081 graded by SGC, which brings the total to just under 7,000 graded copies of this 53 tops. His 49 Leaf, much fewer graded, 186 graded by PSA, 73 graded by SGC, for a total of just over 250 graded copies. For the 49 Bowman, we have 1,065 graded by PSA, 389 graded by SGC, for a total of right around 1,400 graded by both. So we're talking about, if we add up a population count of every graded Satchel Paige card between PSA and SGC, we get to a grand total of 8,652 total graded PSA SGC Playing Days Satchel Paige cards. That's it. That's how many graded Satchel Paige Playing Days cards there are. When you compare that to a guy like Mantle, for example, his base run, which includes 21 cards, your total graded populations between PSA and SGC of base Mantle cards is well in excess of 200,000 graded examples. So it just shows you the scarcity relative to another vintage player that Satchel Paige has. There's only so many Playing Days graded Satchel Paige cards, and so that's a consideration. Moving on to the autograph, this is a really nice example of his 1974 TCMA postcard with a really nice signature there. Perfectly placed in that little box at the bottom. And a nice image, black and white image of Satchel Paige. These are blank back. But very happy to own this one that I've had for a long time. Now, if I was still in the market for a Satchel Paige autograph, one item that I just want to put on people's radar, he was, later in his life, the vice president of the Springfield Redbirds, and he was known to give out signed copies of his business card. And I think he would mail them to people that requested his autograph back then too. And it's just a really interesting item, and one that if I was still looking for a Satchel Paige autograph, I would certainly be targeting one of those. It's just a cool personal item, and maybe the best part about it is on the back of the business card, he has listed his rules for the good life, which have since become sort of linked and very famous. 1, avoid fried foods because they angers up the blood. 2, if your stomach disputes you, lay down and pacify it with cool thoughts. 3, keep the juices flowing by jangling around gently as you move. 4, go very light on vices, such as carrying on in society. The social ramble just ain't restful. 5, avoid running at all times. And 6, don't ever look back, something might be gaining. I just love those because his character really comes through on the back of that business card. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me on this countdown and on this video. This one was especially fun and rewarding for me. I'll leave you with a picture of me and Satch from the Negro League Baseball Museum. And until next time, keep collecting and stay iconic.